Buried for millennia, these clay tablets hold humanity's oldest epic poem. A story of heroes, monsters, and the search for eternal life. Our story begins in ancient Uruk, one of the world's first great cities, in what is now modern-day Iraq. It was ruled by Gilgamesh. According to the myth, he was 2/3 god and 1/3 man, gifted with immense strength and beauty. But his power made him a tyrant. The epic states he exhausted his people with forced labor and asserted his right over every new bride. The people of Uruk cried out to the heavens for relief. The gods heard their prayers and decided to create a rival for Gilgamesh. From a pinch of clay, the goddess Aruru fashioned a wild man, Enkidu. He was as strong as Gilgamesh, but completely untamed. The legends say Enkidu lived in the wilderness with the animals. He drank from their watering holes and ran with the gazelles. A trapper, his livelihood ruined by Enkidu freeing animals from his traps, reported the wild man to King Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh devised a plan. He sent Shamhat, a temple priestess, to tame the wild man with the arts of civilization. According to the epic, she waited by the watering hole. When Enkidu appeared, he was captivated by her. For 6 days and 7 nights, she taught him of human society. He ate bread, drank ale, and learned the ways of humanity. Now civilized, Enkidu learned of the tyrant King Gilgamesh and his abuses. Enraged, he set off for the city of Uruk to challenge him. He arrived in the city square just as Gilgamesh was about to claim his right with a new bride. Enkidu blocked his path. The two titans clashed. They wrestled through the city, shaking doorposts and walls with their godlike strength. Gilgamesh, for the first time, had met his equal. He finally managed to throw Enkidu, but his fury was spent. In that moment of mutual respect, their rivalry transformed into a deep and powerful friendship. They became inseparable companions. Seeking fame and glory that would last forever, Gilgamesh proposed a great quest: to journey to the legendary cedar forest. There, they would slay its monstrous guardian, Humbaba, and cut down the sacred cedar trees for the gates of Uruk. Enkidu, who knew the forest from his wild days, was terrified. He warned Gilgamesh of Humbaba's dreadful power. But Gilgamesh was determined to make a name for himself that would last forever. He would not be dissuaded. After forging mighty weapons and receiving blessings from the elders, the two heroes set off on their perilous journey. They reached the edge of the vast cedar forest. The sheer scale and eerie silence of the place began to unnerve even Gilgamesh. Suddenly, the guardian appeared. The legends describe Humbaba as a giant whose roar was the flood, whose breath was fire. A terrible battle ensued. The heroes fought bravely, but Humbaba's power was immense, shaking the mountains with his rage. Gilgamesh prayed to the sun god, Shamash, who sent mighty winds to trap Humbaba, blinding him and holding him still. With the monster at their mercy, Gilgamesh and Enkidu struck the final blow, ending the reign of the forest's guardian. They returned to Uruk as celebrated heroes, carrying the head of Humbaba and timber from the tallest cedar trees. Gilgamesh's fame reached the heavens. The goddess Ishtar, watching him, was overcome with desire and demanded he become her husband. But Gilgamesh scornfully rejected her, listing all the mortal lovers she had taken and then cruelly discarded. Humiliated and enraged, Ishtar flew to her father, the sky god Anu, and demanded vengeance for this insult. She unleashed the Bull of Heaven, a colossal beast, to destroy Uruk and punish Gilgamesh for his arrogance. The bull's snort opened cracks in the earth, swallowing hundreds of people. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu faced the beast together. In a spectacular fight, Enkidu distracted the bull while Gilgamesh plunged his sword into its neck, killing the divine creature. Enkidu, in a final act of defiance, tore off the bull's thigh and hurled it at the watching goddess Ishtar. This act of hubris was too much for the gods. They gathered in council and decreed that one of the two heroes must die. Because Enkidu was not part divine, he was chosen. Soon after, he fell gravely ill, cursed by the gods. For 12 days, he suffered, recounting terrible visions of the underworld, a house of dust where the dead dwell in darkness. And then, his best friend, his brother in arms, died. Gilgamesh was utterly shattered by the loss. He mourned for 7 days, refusing to let the body be buried, until decay finally forced him to accept the truth. Enkidu's death awakened a new, profound terror in Gilgamesh, the fear of his own mortality. He could not bear the thought of dying. He resolved to find the one man said to have escaped death, Utnapishtim, the survivor of the Great Flood. His journey was long and fraught with peril. He battled lions and scorpion men who guarded the path to the ends of the earth. He traveled for 12 leagues through absolute darkness under the mountains, a journey that tested his sanity and resolve. Finally, he emerged into a wondrous garden of jewels by the sea and met the ferryman, Shinabi, who could cross the waters of death. After a difficult crossing, he at last stood before Utnapishtim, the Ancient One, who lived in a remote paradise. Gilgamesh begged for the secret to eternal life, but Utnapishtim told him that death is the fate of all mortals, decreed by the gods. To explain his own immortality, Utnapishtim recounted a story that would echo through history, the tale of the Great Flood. He told how the gods, angered by humanity's noise, decided to wipe them out with a deluge that would cover the world. But one god, Ea, secretly warned Utnapishtim in a dream, telling him to build a massive boat and save his family and the seed of all living things. He built the ark as instructed. When the rains came, a terrible storm raged for 6 days and 6 nights, submerging everything. When the waters receded, the boat came to rest on a mountain. He had survived. For this, the gods granted him and his wife eternal life. Utnapishtim's story was not a secret to immortality, but a unique exception. To prove Gilgamesh was unfit for it, he set a simple test. He challenged Gilgamesh to stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights. But the exhausted king immediately fell into a deep sleep. He had failed to conquer sleep, let alone death. Defeated, Gilgamesh prepared to return to Uruk empty-handed. Taking pity, Utnapishtim's wife urged him to give Gilgamesh a parting gift, the secret of a magical plant. He told Gilgamesh of a plant at the bottom of the sea that could restore youth to an old man. It was a second chance. Gilgamesh tied stones to his feet, sank to the bottom, and plucked the thorny plant, though it cut his hands. He decided not to use it himself immediately, but to take it back to Uruk and test it on an old man first. On the journey home, he stopped to bathe in a cool pool of water, leaving the plant on the shore. But here, the story takes its final tragic turn. A snake, drawn by the plant's fragrance, slithered out and stole it. As the snake ate it, it shed its skin, becoming young again. Gilgamesh saw this and knew his last hope was gone. He sat down and wept. He had endured everything for nothing. He had finally and completely failed to conquer mortality. He returned to Uruk, but as he approached, he looked upon the massive walls he had built, and a new understanding dawned. He realized a person's life may end, but their legacy, the great works they leave behind, can achieve a kind of immortality. The story of Gilgamesh, lost for 2,000 years, proved its own moral. The tale itself became his lasting legacy. For more tales from history, subscribe to World History Tales.